And good afternoon. This is Kathleen Smith at ClearedJobs.Net, and I'm joined today by Kevin King of EC Counsel, and we're going to delve into the topic of the DoD 8570, which is actually a matrix of certifications that people need to get to be able to do certain kind of security cleared work. We were talking a little bit about Star Trek earlier, so I'm very tickled that I have a fellow Trekkie fan, and I hope I don't turn people off who are Star Wars. Don't play with your Ewoks. Anyway, so Kevin, now that you've had your coffee, tell us a little bit about you and why you're the expert on DoD 8570.
Well, first of all, about me, obviously my name is Kevin, and I actually started my career in DoD. And so I worked at a defense contractor in my first years of college, straight out of high school. Back then I was a whiz kid. Now I'm the whiz old guy. And I learned a lot of the ins and outs of dealing with security clearances and advancing security clearances and maintaining security clearances. Working in secured areas, working in SCIFs. After that, I also went through a period of life, which I'm still in, of acquiring multiple certifications and then doing certification training and consulting at the same time. So I would do consulting in places like Los Alamos National Labs and Wismar, and which is White Sands National Monument, and other bases around the country, and regular companies, Fortune 500, all the way down to mom and pop businesses. And so I've had an opportunity to both go down the certification path many, many times, teach people to go down the certification path many, many times, and work in the industry. With all that said, why am I the expert? I don't consider myself the expert, but I do have some experience that might be helpful for others who are doing the same thing.
Great. Well, we consider you the expert because we really enjoy our partnership with EC Counsel, and we have really appreciated you coming and teaching some of the workshops at our Cleared Job fairs in Texas. So to us, you are an expert.
Right on.
So our first question, whenever I talk to someone, I say, just look up the 8570. And, when you look it up, it's this matrix. So I thought we would sort of go through exactly what is the matrix and how is it, set up. Yes. Sorry, I'm not doing well here with, there we go. So can you sort of talk us through how this certification matrix is set up and how we should read it?
Okay, so first of all, to understand what is the matrix, that's another question, but for this particular one, we'll talk about it. So this is divided into four separate areas, actually three separate areas. And the one that you see on the very top is the IA, by the way, is information assurance. And the one on the very top is information assurance technical. And so they describe the type of job that you're going to be applying for. When you are applying for the job, the application process, it'll be made clear the level of job for which you are applying. And so IAT level 1, 2, and 3 is information assurance technical. And then you go down to that next level, and that's IAM, which is information assurance management. So let's say that you are in an IAT level 2 job, and there's an internal post for a management job. And I'm making this up because I actually experienced that in one of my jobs. I was working on a lower level job, and then a management post came up, and I applied for it internally. And what you want to do is be prepared for that. So if you are planning on either hitting that management track or the next one down that you see, the ISAE, which is Information Assurance System Architects and Engineers, if you're planning on going there, one of the strategies is to make sure you have your certification before, right? So if you apply for the job and you get the job, you might be in limbo. There's only a certain amount of time that you have to make sure that you have the certification So it's very important to make sure that you aim ahead. So the third one down is architects and engineers. And these are people who are going to be designing systems. So for instance, you look at the network infrastructure and the automation and the orchestration. Orchestration is the ability to automate heterogeneous systems. So these are systems that from different vendors and so on. And it takes a little bit of scripting and so on. So if you're going to do architecture, look for a job for architects and engineers, then you need the IASAE. And then the CSSP, there are several different levels for there too. Those are cybersecurity service providers. So you're going to be sort of at the core of multiple infrastructures in that case, providing support for those infrastructures, including analyst level support, infrastructure support, incident responder, auditor, and manager. And so this, from that, think of those as major centers where they take in information from other centers and help to coordinate overall movement of data and response to incidents and stuff like that. And so within each of these levels, technical, T for technical, M for management, SAE for architects and engineers, system architects and engineers, SSP for service provider. Within each of those levels, there are certifications that are useful for those levels. And one of the things to keep in mind with this chart is that you have a choice at each of these levels to get several certifications. And so it will depend on where you are going as to what certification that you will go after.
Wonderful. So it's very interesting, as I said, anytime we look at this chart, people are like, okay, do I have to do them all? But let's sort of talk about, is this an outline of certifications just for people who are doing government contract work or working for the government, or could this also apply to civilian?
I think that I'm actually very glad that we have a directive like this, because with the chart that we're looking at here for the 8570 and the upcoming 8140, it is very helpful because it helps to kind of divide out the types of jobs that are in the civilian world too. And if you are an entry level, you're looking for entry level technical work, then getting one of these certifications would be very helpful. And it breaks it out into engineers, management, entry level, and into service provider. So I would say that this is an actually very nicely put together chart that would very much help in the real world too. Although clear jobs are the real world, but sometimes when you're in one of those skiffs, it doesn't feel like it. But yeah, so it really helps in the rest of the world, I guess is a better term to say.
So it's really a very nice outline, depending on, if you've chosen that you want to go into a technical or specifically cybersecurity community kind of job, to sort of keep an eye on this as your progression as you're going through. So is this something that, when people are looking at doing certifications, we talk about keeping up to date on your certifications. Yes. And how do you do that? So our next question is, what are sort of the milestones that you need to look at? Are you looking at a new certification every quarter? Are you looking at a new one every year? What should sort of be the tempo?
Well, the way I try to do this is I get a certification every Monday. It's the best way to do things. I'm just kidding. It's not the way to do it. What you do is a lot of these questions have an answer in that most people don't like, which is it depends. All right, but let me flesh that out a little bit and talk about it. So first of all, what is your goal? So for instance, if your goal is to be a penetration tester, you have a pretty long path ahead of you. You have to decide whether you're going to be a pen tester working for a major organization, whether you're going to be a pen tester working in a cleared job, and that you know about. Like, for instance, I've worked in DoD before, where you know where you are going and you know what job you're aiming at, and in fact, there are people inside the company that are sort of grooming you and pushing you towards that. If you have that clear path, then you step through the certifications required for penetration testing, for pen testing. Now, here's the deal, is as you are in the easier certifications, like at that IAT level 1, it takes less time to get the certification. And I'm going to circle around to something else too that I forgot to mention, which is it's also going to be dependent on your level of experience. I've had both students and colleagues who are non-technical moving into technical, and that is a bigger leap than the people who are currently technical. Let's say that 2 examples. We have Fred. Fred is working at McDonald's and says, you know what, I'm going to get a government job, and ends up getting a mailroom position at a national laboratory. And now that he's in the mailroom position, he's like, now I want to move into IT. Then he's going to have a lot of work to do. Now, let's take Sally. Sally does not have any certifications. She's taught herself a little bit of Linux, a little bit of Python. She has looked into computer management, a little bit of scripting in other ways. She understands what Active Directory is, basically, which is Microsoft's directory services, which is how you manage users and user accounts and so on. So she has some technical background, maybe even an associate's degree in a technical field or something like that. She's very likely to get through those entry-level certifications a lot faster than Fred. But once Fred and, what was her name, Sally, are both in that entry level and completed that certification, they will both be able to, very likely, if they're in that job already, advance almost at the same level. It just takes a longer time to get from 0 to hero than it does to get from one certification to the next. So next, being said, that first certification, it will be longer if you don't have experience, shorter if you do have experience. And then what you want to do is keep up the certification cadence and do one. Sometimes it might be once every 6 months or up to once a year, depending on if you're going to boot camps or if you're studying on your own, both of which are valuable. The biggest issue with getting your certification that perhaps we could talk about later is that you need both the knowledge of the topics in the certification and you need the skills that the knowledge provides. So for instance, and I've worked on both sides. I've been on the management side, and I've worked on many of the entry-level jobs. And what I do in an interview is I want the job applicant to show me that they know the technology. And in many of these cleared jobs, before you even get the job, they're going to make you take their own exam to show that you know the technology. And in some cases, they'll make you actually prove that you can handle the technology. So on your certification journey, it is important to not only acquire the knowledge, but acquire the skills.
That's great. So I'm going to, sort of move us to the next question, which might be, a little bit redundant, but I think it's going to be helpful delving into that topic a little bit more. And if I can handle the controls correctly here, I'm going to pull the chart back up. So, what does it take, in my understanding of various different certifications, they're basically in a series. You start with one, you go to the next, you go to the next. It's not like baking a cake and you can put all the layers on and then put the icing and you're done. It is more that you take one, you work a little bit, and you take the next.
Yes.
So let's go back to, the chart here. Yeah. And why don't you pick one of the certification series and sort of talk about what the background and sort of the step goes from there.
Okay, so if you look at IAT level 1, you have 4 different certifications you can get. This is including A+, CCNA Security, Network Plus, and SSCP. So these are the first certifications that you can get. For the beginner, if you've never done any of these certifications, they can be very, very daunting. And so let me just give you an example of a couple of different paths for this. Number one would be to start with the A+. The A+, though, one of the issues with it is it has 2 exams. And so if you go to the A+ and you think, oh man, I need to do 2 exams, then you look at the Net Plus and it only requires 1 exam. However, the Network Plus requires a little bit more of entry-level knowledge that you would have gotten in A+. The CCNA Security, Cisco makes amazing certifications, and but they're very well put together, and they require a set of entry-level knowledge also. So one of the things that I would say about this is probably if you've never done a certification before and you are a entry-level, you're aiming at an entry-level job, I would probably start with A+. And then what you do is you take this chart and you go to the next level from A+. If you have your A+ and you understand your A+, this opens you up to several different things. Number one, it opens you up to Network Plus, Security Plus, and all the rest of the CompTIA. But what a lot of people do is they'll start off with the A+, Net Plus, and then branch off into whatever their chosen field is. So for instance, if you're going for an engineering position, then you might branch off into CCNA Security and then CCNP, etc. If you're going for a management position, then you would take a middle level certification, like for instance, not CompTIA, but maybe like one of our certifications, like CND. CND is a good step to get you into CEH, which is good to get you into pen testing, or use one of the other, the GIAC or others. What I'm saying is that Security Plus and Network Plus are certifications that open the doors to some of these other certifications that require such a big step to get into. It takes a big step to get into Certified Ethical Hacker or Certified Network Defender, or into a CCNA or a CCNP. It takes a big first step. So A+, in my opinion, is probably the first step for the person who has no experience. And then from there, you map your way through what you're aiming at in terms of your security goals, certification goals.
Wonderful. So, a big question out there is which one is really the hardest to prepare for? And I think it's not only is it a hard one to prepare for from the sense of studying, but do you have to have a certain amount of experience, or is there one in each category that's the hardest?
Okay, so there are 2 that I would say are the hardest to prepare for. Number one is your first exam. Your first exam is the most difficult to prepare for in most cases. I don't know how much time we have, but let me just quickly give you a little vignette of what happened to me on my first exam. This was way back to some people. For me, it was not that long ago, in 1996. And I was working for a training company, and I was the first one in the training company to get a technical certification. And so I went off to take my exam for a Windows workstation, NT4 workstation, and I failed it. What I had done is I had created packs of note cards in order to do my exam. And when I went there, I had never seen an exam before. This was my first time seeing an exam. And I failed it by a few points. I later on obviously went back and passed it and finished the MCSE and many times and so on. However, so that first one is the big one. Now, the next ones that are just hard to pass. If you look down in this chart, you will see one of the first ones that I would say is difficult to pass, which is the CEH. The CEH has two components. Certified Ethical Hacker has a knowledge component and a practical component. If you pass both of those, you become a CEH master. If you only pass the knowledge component, you become a CEH. One of the issues, which is a good thing with CEH, is they are constantly taking the new technologies. So, for instance, you might be going for another security certification, and they follow a path that gives you the basic security areas, which I don't have time to go into right now. But then you go to the CEH, and they're asking you about Docker, and they're asking you about Kubernetes. They're asking you about IoT and OT because they update it, they upgrade it. So that's probably one of the hardest ones to get. And then after that, if you look at the SAEs, some of these are difficult to get. If you look at the management level, the CISSP is traditionally a difficult one to get, but it is only knowledge based. One of the things that we see that shook out of this chart that you don't see anymore is you don't see any more of the Cisco certifications. At least I think maybe some of them are covered up at the bottom. But the upper level Cisco certifications are also very difficult. I remember taking a CCNP Cisco certification, and one of the things they had me do was like, this router needs DSL. Configure the router for DSL. And then you open up an interface and you have to configure the whole thing. With the CEH practical, it says this computer has there's a computer on the network running a Linux operating system that has an exposed area. Find the computer and then hack the FTP server, right? So those are practical. Those are things where you have to do configuration, and those tend to be the most difficult to study for, take the longest, but they have the best return.
That's great. I love you adding in, having the best return, because we all know that we've gone to school and we've taken subjects, we've taken tests, we've done things, and they were mainly just to check the box. Yes. Rather than to really apply to what we're trying to do and what kind of work we're trying to make a difference at. But it's interesting when I hear all of this, I hear that it's, going to take a lot of time. And I think that that's one thing that a lot of us are really good at procrastinating. So, you said earlier to start with the A+ or the Network Plus. Are there maybe other places people can start? And how much time is this going to take? I mean, am I giving up my time to watch movies in the afternoon and the evening? Am I, not going to have any kind of social life when we can get back to talking to people face to face? I mean, what kind of time are we talking about?
Okay, so first of all, anything that is worth it, anything good, requires an investment in you, an investment in your time. And so what I always recommend is that people section out a part of their life for this to happen. So for instance, on Monday, Wednesday, and Friday from 6 to 9 o'clock, I will work on my certification. So where do you start? The first thing that you start with is asking yourself the question, what do I want to be? Who do I want to be? And so let's say that you've decided that you want to be a director of IT or security, a CISO maybe, director. And so where do you start? Well, I just got out of my entry-level job and I'm just now getting into technology. All right, let's say you start with the A+. And what you're going to do, and these are some very important things, if you can get a class with a live instructor, get a class with a live instructor. And the reason why is because you can ask live questions that may be very difficult for you, but very obvious to the instructor. If you can't get a class with a live instructor, then you're going to be going through books and so on. What you need for every one of these levels, you need two things. Number one, a practice tests, a series of practice tests that you need to be scoring in the 90s before you go take the real test. And number two, you're going to need some type of hands-on lab. And so you can, if you bought the A+ book, for instance, and you buy the one that has those things in a DVD in the back of the book, or you can go online and get that information. You need practice test information, and you need some type of hands-on lab, because a lot of these exams have at least some component. You know, put the web server where it belongs in the network architecture, and you drag it into the DMZ, right? So those are some things. And how long will it take? So for each exam, I would allocate 6 months at least for an exam, depending on the difficulty of the exam. Also, depending on how much time you have. Now, I've worked with people who had a lot of time, and they were in between jobs, and they're like, I'm going to take all the time. I'm going to work on this all day, every day. And they've been able to compress that down to a month of intense study, but they have all day. So for the busy professional, you're probably going to look at a 6-month journey for each of these exams, in my opinion.
Wonderful. Well, we had a question from the audience, so I'm just going to pop this up so that we can get involved, get our audience involved a little bit. So what certification would be useful for someone who works as a system engineer? So Michelle, I'm going to say that we're going to start as a systems engineer, but then maybe ask Kevin to talk a little bit about, you know, if you want to advance into management or other parts of your career.
Okay, so for this, I'm going to jump a little bit outside of the certification matrix here, because not all the certifications that are really good for systems engineering are there. For systems engineering, because you didn't mention security in that question. So I'm just going to talk specifically about systems engineering. For systems engineering, I'm going to give you 2 tracks. 1, you have 0 certifications. 2, you have some certifications, but not in systems engineering. What you want to find out is, well, you already know if you're in the job, what are the vendors for the major systems for which you are engineering, and what certification tracks do those vendors have. And so the systems engineering, as you well know, because I've done it before, can range wildly. Okay, so I'm just going to circle back to stuff I know, stick with something you know, right? Which is Cisco. So let's say there are 2 more cases I'm going to talk about. You are using a non-Cisco network infrastructure that's part of your systems engineering, or you're using a Cisco infrastructure for your systems engineering. So I have had a lot of non-Cisco people take my Cisco courses because they are so comprehensive. But nowadays, a lot of vendors have caught up, and they have started to have very good certification paths for system engineers. So look at your environment and examine the path that the vendors of the major components in your organization have. And then take a step back and ask yourself, is this recognized in the industry? One way to do that, and this is one thing I love to do, is go to a job site. You can go to ClearedJobs. You can go to Indeed. You can go to others, and you can type in the certification. So let's say that you decide to get vendor A certification. Type it in as a job search and see how many jobs come up. And that's another thing too, with all these in your cleared job. If you want to make sure that that certification is useful and recognized, go to a job site and type it in and see what you get back. So you type in CEH, you type in CSA Plus, you type in SCP, try and see what they say. Are they looking for that in the job position that you're in? So so I would recommend looking at the vendors for which your organization has a major relationship with. Check those vendors. But I always circle back to Cisco because they have such good, especially their higher level certifications at the NP level on up are so comprehensive that you can't help but walk away with enough knowledge to move forward. Another thing I want to say about that is that when you get a certification, one of the really good things about it is you explore areas you never thought about. So you're doing systems engineering, system administration, network engineering. You go get a certification, and they talk about all the ranges of subjects that can happen with that. And so what you do is you explore those, and you bring back more knowledge into your organization, and you might expand the capabilities of your organization just by getting that certification. So I don't know if that helps, but that's what I'm throwing at you.
You're a fountain of helpful information. So we sort of started this really talking about, security cleared jobs. So really, which of the certs are really valued by the defense contractors?
Okay, so one of the things to keep in mind is that these days we have quite a lot of security breaches going on. A lot of you might be familiar with the stuff going on with Exchange and other organizations. And so when I look at defense contractors these days, a lot of them, and I don't mean to delve into my employer, but a lot of them are actually looking for those security certifications that require a certain level of hacking knowledge. One thing I want to say about hacking is that is not a pejorative term. What a hack is it's a way of taking a complex system and that was designed for a certain type of use and using it in a different way. That's why when you type in hacks into DuckDuckGo or Google, you'll see hair hacks and nail hacks and food hacks and diet hacks, because we're taking complex systems, we're taking ways that where they were normally used, and then we're using them in a way that was unexpected. And so that's why taking the tools of an operating system, of an application, and finding out where the vulnerabilities are and making sure that you understand how to do that is so important. And a lot of the seminars I do are not necessarily EC Council specific. Like, for instance, we have a device called the Storm, and I was up at Quantico a while ago doing a little seminar, a one-day seminar on using this device to get behind enemy lines, right? Red team versus blue team. And so what I would do is I would look for a certification that shows you how to hack. How is it that your enemies, the enemies of the state, enemies of your network, general attackers are trying, because this is what all this is all about, security, right? And when in a cleared job, you've been to the briefings that you get, your security briefings, security updates, and so on. You know what is out there trying to get our data, trying to get our information, stuff that makes national news sometimes, and other times it doesn't. There is a lot we need to defend. So whether you're going for CEH or CSA or some of the GIAC or the GCFA, find out if that certification teaches you to hack. And if it does, then that is something that everybody is looking for right now. You know how long it took? Just one last thing in this area. We had Exchange servers installed all over the nation. And these Exchange servers were vulnerable because of one major thing. They were not patched. And they had no other major protection in front of them. It took over a couple of months for Microsoft and the engineers working in these organizations to finally get them up to 90% patch. It was just announced today. 90% patch. There's even 10% of these Exchange servers are still out there unpatched. And patching is a fairly simple thing. We need people who understand the types of attacks that are coming in against our networks. That's you who are watching this webinar, to be able to defend the network. So look at the certification, read about the certification, and find out what they teach you in terms of how the enemy is coming at you, and then how you defend that attack. So I'm just going to generalize it that way.
I'm just going to show a really great comment here. Great way to excellent way to explain hacking. So kudos from the audience. And then we have another question that's a little bit more getting down into the weeds, but I think it's going to be a benefit to everyone else. So Paulus just passed A+ and is currently working on Net Plus and Security Plus. His plan is to jump straight into getting certified in CCNA. What's your thoughts on that?
Yes, it's great. Next question. I'm just kidding. I'm not going to. No, it is actually a very good path. In fact, that is so important to get those 3 before you go into CCNA, because they really expect you to know that on the first day of the CCNA, you will cover about 45% of the major topics in those 3 certifications on the first day. And then from there, you move into configuration. And one of the greatest things about the CCNA that I really like is you actually learn networking. Just a very quick story. I was in consulting. I was doing network. I was training. But it wasn't until I took my CCNA that something just smacked me upside the head. You don't know networking. I realized when I was in my CCNA, after having done Net Plus, Security Plus, all these, I didn't understand networking. The CCNA, when you finish it, you will understand how networking works. And so, but yeah, having those 3 before you hit that CCNA, very, very good plan.
Awesome. So we're going to go back to our little chart again, because we have another question here. So, since we're talking about security cleared cybersecurity jobs, which of these certifications is really going to help my career as a security cleared professional?
That's actually a very good question. I'm going to give you another 2 paths here. There is one path where, as a security cleared professional, you are just required to have the certification at the level where you are currently working. You're just required to have it. Some jobs don't actually care whether it is A+ or CEH or GCIH or whatever. They don't care. They just want to make sure you have it, and it's a check in a box so that you can work your job. You might be already a systems engineer, but you don't have the certifications. They just want to get you up to where you need to be. So you might take A+ and then go to CAP or Security Plus, and then run right into a 3rd level like GCIA or something like that, right? So that's one path. They don't care what certification you get. You're already secure in your job, and you just need to get it. And so you can just kind of try to find the easiest one. But the path that I recommend is having a target for where you want to be. And so for those, it really depends. Here's what I would do if I were you. Number one, there are several major vendors that are represented here. We see the IC2, which is going to be your SSCP and other certifications. We see EC Council with your CEH and other certifications. And then for your GIAC, we see that you have your Global Information Security Assurance. They have a huge number of certifications there. Each of these have their own paths, their own methodologies, and they are all very good in their own right. One thing I would like to say is that you probably would want to go with a something like for instance, if you go with EC Council, that's going to be your penetration testing, hacking, or your application testing, and so on. If you go with CompTIA. They have a wide variety of certifications. They are, I would say, to a certain extent, less in depth on a per subject basis, but they're very good. And for your GIAC certifications, they also have a wide variety of certifications. So go to each vendor, discuss their paths. Also, don't be afraid to call their salespeople. So if you're going to take a class, let's say you're going GIAC and you plan on getting a certification, you don't plan on paying $2,000 for a class. You're going to get a book. Still, call their salespeople and say, what is it like? Where do I go? How does it work? And they'll talk to you. Or call EC Councils or Cisco's or somebody who does Cisco training, New Horizons or something like that. And don't be afraid to talk to salespeople. You can tell them, look, I don't want to be contacted over and over again, so take me off your list. If you're doing that right now, you can do that. It won't hurt their feelings. They're salespeople, right? They do that all day long. Call the vendors and ask questions. But so I can't give you a specific path because I don't know where you are in your career. But like we were talking about before, I will take questions offline if they're more specific. Like, for instance, I am doing this. I have these certifications, and this is where I want to go. What's a good path? If I will answer those in the blog if you want, and those very specific ones. It's just hard to do that when they're not. They're very general, right? So, yeah, I don't know. Is that okay?
Hey, no. Honesty is always the best policy, and we're so thankful for your time, today. So, there are some questions coming in, but one thing I do have to say, speaking from the sort of recruiter standpoint, that if it's in the job posting, if it's in the job requirement that says you have to have these certifications and you don't have them, don't apply to the job. It's not that they don't want to hire you, because it's, they don't like you. It is the requirement of the government contract to have professionals who have these specific certifications.
Yes.
There's no way around it.
Yep.
So if you don't have the certifications, please don't apply for the job. If you're really interested in the job, then go get that certification and still network with that recruiter and network with other people who do that kind of work. It's really, the best way to go about that. So, we're talking, you had the example earlier about taking, 9 hours a week. One question that we haven't talked about is how often do you need to renew your certifications? Because, we're not only doing the initial work for getting the certifications, some of these we have to keep renewing.
Yes.
And I think that people think that it's only in the technical world that you need to renew, but lawyers, doctors, real estate people, everyone has to have continuing education. So how often do you need to go in and renew your certifications?
Okay, so some certifications require just renewal. All right, so they just require you to go get another certification. Other certifications require CE credits to keep the certification. And if you have the CE credits, then you can keep your certification and you don't have to go take another exam. Each vendor has different policies, but usually it's about 3 years. So if I have a Cisco certification that I got 3 years ago, this year, I need to go get another Cisco certification. And that would then renew my other certification. So now, even though my first certification expires in 3 years, now that I got to pass another test, my first certification and whatever new test I took are now all still current. You get a CE8 Certified Ethical Hacker certification. And if you don't update it in 3 years, it just expires. But you can get continuing education credits and just maintain that certification indefinitely as long as you're getting CEs. So bottom line, in general, about every 3 years, but in many certifications, you can just maintain continuing education and you can maintain that certification for a long time doing that.
Great. We have a question, and I'm gonna show it, but I'm gonna answer it in sort of the realm of government contracting, because that's what we're really talking
Yes.
about now. So, the question is, will an employer accept employees with knowledge and certs over a degree completion? So this is a big question that happens in the community a lot. We, sit there and say, I know how to do it, but I don't have the degree. I don't have the certification. So there are two answers. One, it depends. If you're in the commercial world, it really depends on the employer, if they're willing to take you without the degree and the certifications. But if you're in the government contracting community, that is a no pass on that. You have to have the degree and you have to have the certifications.
Yeah.
It's unfortunate. There are many, many talented people out there who can do the work, can run circles around the people who do have certs and degrees, but all government contracts have a minimum requirement, and every government contractor has to meet that. Do you have anything to add?
Yeah, exactly. Let's assume that you meet the minimum requirement. So let's say that the minimum requirement for this entry-level job is a bachelor's degree in something, and the whatever chart level you're on for the certification. Let's say you have those, but let's also say that the job goes beyond that. Let's say that you have the minimum certifications, but it is a job working with network edge equipment and load balancers and stuff like that, right? And there is a certification for that edge network equipment, and you have a degree. And I've done this many times. I have a bunch of resumes I have to go through. I have people that meet the basic requirements. Some of them have certs, some of them have degrees. And the bottom line is, can you do the job? When I'm looking at resumes, I'm looking at both certs and degrees, and I'm trying to line them up with the goals I have for that job. When I get you in the interview room for the first and second and sometimes third level interviews, I want to know if you can do the job. So if you meet the minimum requirements and you can get the interview, you need to prove that you actually know your stuff. And I've worked with people with master's degrees and PhDs that had no clue about the equipment that I needed them to work on every day. And I've also known people with certifications that went and got the answers to the exam from Reddit or something like that, and they had no clue either. And that can be sorted out so quickly in the interview. What I want to know in that interview is, can you do it? So that's why I always recommend certifications that have a very strong hands-on practical component.
Wonderful. So we're going to hit one more question, and only because, you touched on this a little bit earlier, and we talk about burnout in the community. We talk about, not being able to handle it all. So, somebody's working full time, they've got family, they want to have some downtime. How do you do certification taking and renewing all while working?
Talk to your family. Your family very likely wants you to move forward in your efforts. Get apps that you can run on your phone, so that if you're out shopping and you have 2 kids in the basket, been there before, and you can go through a couple of questions. Talk with the family, arrange a time, and they want you to be successful, and you're going to have to map out your time, work with your family. I've done this before many times, and if you work with the family, sometimes it doesn't work out. Periodically, there's a blow up, but usually you'll be able to get the time you need, whether it's once a weekend, whether it's every other day. You just need to section that time out only for study.
That sounds great. Well, Kevin, this has been delightful. I'm sorry we didn't get time to talk more about Star Trek, but I think we'll do that at another time.
Yes.
And any final thoughts you want to share with our audience?
Yes. I want to let you know that the IT community, and specifically the security community, needs you. We do. We need you. We don't have enough of these jobs filled. And so go out there and get it done, get that certification. And if you do any CompTIA classes, I wish I had Discord servers for everything, but I have Discord servers for some CompTIA classes not CompTIA, I'm sorry, EC Council classes. I keep on saying that. And so if you ever take an EC Council class, let me know and I'll add you to my Discord server. But get with a community somewhere where you can talk. We need you. We need you.
Thank you. That's great. One thing that we didn't touch upon, which is something that I talk about a lot in all of my presentations, is all of our conferences are, besides Las Vegas, DEF CON, all of the hackathons. Those are really great ways of getting practical experience. It's also really great ways of being able to find, how to take the test, what to do with the test, because we're not all really great test takers. I know I'm not. I'm awful at them. But if I had had a community like we have in the information security community, the IT community, I know it would have been so much easier. So do realize when you get involved in your CTFs, when you get involved with the community, when you're on Discord, when you're on Twitch, you are constantly learning. Just remember to apply that to your certifications. Kevin, thank you so much for your time this afternoon. It was delightful. And thank you, everyone, for all of your questions and comments. If we didn't get to your question, we'll try to answer it in a blog. Take care. Bye-bye.
Bye.